Good evening. Welcome to Bourne Environmental Review. My name is Phil Goddard, your host. Today is December 10th, 2019. Very happy to get another show in to keep my streak going for continuous years of having a show. This is, believe it or not, going into my 23rd year doing this show. It's hard to believe that time goes by that fast. There's been a lot of topics we've had on the show focused on environmental topics that are of interest to the people in residence in the town of Bourne, including the military base, the National Marine Life Center, a whole host of interesting topics. But one that I haven't talked to you about is litter. I work for the town in recycling and solid waste, so I don't talk about that on this show because I do that in the other capacity. But this is a little different in that it's a broad issue that affects all of us in this beautiful seaside community. And I have two special guests that I want to introduce to talk about this issue, because I'm sure as you drive down roads in Bourne, along the on-ramps, off-ramps, and the highway, on more remote roads, you'll see litter everywhere. And as with me, it drives me crazy. See it on our beaches, and we're wondering what is going on with litter. So to talk about that and what we can do about it, what's happening on Cape Cod, I have two special guests, as I mentioned. Meg Morris from Brewster, and Teri Cavanaugh from the town of Bourne here, who are with the Cape Cod Anti-Litter Coalition. So Meg I've known for many years in the solid waste industry and from the board of Mass Recycle, which is a statewide recycling coalition. And Meg, why don't you tell us a little bit about this group, because you were one of the founders.
Right. We just started the group in 2016, which is about the time I retired. Didn't have anything else to do, and but litter has been a pet peeve of mine for just years. And so when I did retire, I had time to do something about it, and so with a very small group, we got together and formed, a 501c3. Went through all sort of the administrative end of it, and we did it because we agreed we were all tired of picking up litter.
Right.
So where the Cape Cod Anti-Litter Coalition, our main focus is to prevent litter, I should step back, it's to figure out how to prevent litter, because there's certainly enough litter to go around here on Cape Cod, but it's trying to get into people's minds and into their habits and behaviors and show them the impact of their behaviors, and then help them to understand why they shouldn't do it, which then leads to prevention.
One would think that would be obvious.
Oh, you would think it would be, Phil.
And also, I thought we had this figured out. I'm a child of the 60s and grew up as a kid during the eco movement, the environmental movement, and at the time in the late 60s, early 70s, there was no EPA. We had leaded gasoline. We had no control over discharges into bodies of water. We had open pipes dumping all sorts of pollution in the Cuyahoga River in Ohio was catching on fire because of the oil. And the very famous commercial put out by Keep America Beautiful.
Yeah.
Which showed a Native American called the Crying Indian. If those of you go on YouTube watching the show, it's a very famous commercial. And William Conrad, who had that commanding voice, an actor talking about people create litter, people can fix it. And it was a powerful image of a Native American canoeing in the rivers with the pollution. And it was really an unbelievable time capsule of what life was like
in the early 70s.
Where, the Gen X, millennials, they have no idea, the boomers know, but we lived through those times when there were no catalytic converters in cars. There was no modern recycling programs and lined landfills and proper air pollution controls and things. And so we take it for granted. And the big campaigns, when they showed a car passing in front of on the highway in front of the Indian, and they throw a bag of trash out onto the side of the road at his feet, and he's got a little tear coming down. I was a youngster, 6, 7, whatever, very powerful, and that inculcated in me a deep sense of injustice or anger, really, about why would people do this? What is going through their brains
Right.
that they think that's okay?
Exactly.
And led me to do what I'm doing now.
Right.
Because we all had down dumps, and I went down there. I was fascinated by it, and the rest is history with my life story. And I'm sure it had similar impacts on
Oh, absolutely.
Like, millions of people.
On
right?
millions of people, because what happened after that commercial came out, you also had Lady Bird Johnson, who, said, "Wait a minute, Texas is a mess," and they got their whole "Don't Mess with Texas" campaign
First Lady,
going.
Lyndon B. Johnson
yes,
in the 60s,
yep.
President Johnson.
You're right. Not everyone knew who Lady Bird
Lady Bird,
Johnson
who's
was.
that?
Thank you, thank you very much,
Singer?
Phil. But and so she got into the campaign. The EPA got into the campaign, and we did clean up.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the roads were cleaner.
There were slogans, "Put litter in its place,"
Yes.
and it showed a stick figure putting trash
Yes.
in a container. We
Which
had "Give a hoot,
we
don't
have-
pollute."
we have
very
a-
much like that.
Yep.
Give a
Yep.
hoot, don't
Don't
pollute. Put litter in its place. These are slogans that are burned into my brain
Right.
as a kid. And I remember coming down here in the summers. I came from a suburb on the South Shore, and my friends down here came from Charlestown, the city. And I noticed the difference when we would go to Cumberland Farms and get, our sugar fix, and they're taking the wrappers off the candy and dropping them on the ground in our neighborhood. And what are you doing? Pick up the litter, because it was pick up litter.
Right.
And they were in the city, and it was still, I think people react to what they see around, kind of the broken window syndrome, right? If you see litter, I guess nobody, or, well, someone else will take care of that.
Right. And right now, that is part of it. There are many groups here on Cape Cod and many individuals who go out on a daily basis and pick up litter. And again, I go back to, but that's not the goal of our organization. We want to get to the litterers so that they stop throwing all that litter down, because we're getting older. We're getting tired of picking up other people's litter.
And I've done those cleanups.
Exactly.
You've done the cleanups
Yes.
with the recycling committee in Bourne. We've done cleanups the last several years at Monks Park and Pecasset, and I'm pleased to say that it has made a difference.
It does make a
We've gotten
difference.
the
Yes.
impacts down. We
Yeah.
don't see the volume there that we saw a few years ago, the litter on the beaches. People seem to be better, but I was driving down Shore Road, down by Monks Park the other night, and it's almost on a rhythmic frequency that I can. 2, 3, 4. Cup. 2, 3, 4. Can. I mean, almost, it's amazing the frequency on a certain stretch. It's you can find something, and then being in the solid waste business, it's like I have a magnet,
Right.
radar for trash. Just whoop, there it is. I can see it, underneath the leaf over there. It's amazing. It's just
Well, and Phil, the other thing is you're more aware.
Yeah.
And again, that's part of what we're trying to do, is make people more aware. We did a cleanup. We participated on the canal on the other side of the bridge 2 years ago. And I had a survey that I was asking people of all who were actually down there helping to clean up. But then there was other people walking along the canal, et cetera. So one of the questions on the survey was, do you notice litter? And it was interesting.
Yeah.
All of the more senior people noticed litter. And a lot of the younger people said, no, I didn't notice any litter. And I'm
Really?
thinking to myself, okay, wait, where's the disparity here? What's going on? It occurred to me, retired people, senior people, we walk more, okay? The younger set drives more. When you drive, yes, you're in the solid waste business. You're
I
just like
notice.
me. You see the trash everywhere. But most people don't even notice it. Some people, which this amazes me, people who drive Route 6 will tell me, I never noticed any litter. And I will look at them and
all
go,
over Route 6.
are you, really?
coming off the highway on the ramps.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
it's every 10 feet.
So I had an experience
Yeah.
recently in Falmouth, actually, where I was getting my hair done. And so my little story to Megs is that I worked in Boston. We bought our house here in the Cape in the 90s, but we didn't move here till about 2003. So I we live about a mile from the Otis Rotary, so there's a pretty picture lake area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I started noticing in the fact that I was slowed down and I was living here full time, that this little section that really no one sees you, you're pretty invisible at that point. There are no homes around and so forth.
So
but
it's
it
a
was
little connecting road
about
there.
a tenth of a mile, then the pond, another tenth of a mile, and you're up on County Road.
Yep.
It was littered. So I thought, well, this is a cause. So I heard myself mumble enough times. I thought, well, I can do this. So I cleaned it up. I had filled 2 13-gallon bags in literally a tenth of a mile. And I thought, how wonderful is this? And within a month, about half of it was back again. That didn't occur to me. I thought it was really a matter of no one's really paid attention. Then I realized that this had gone on. So that mode for me lasted about 10 years. And then my husband, I enlisted him in it, and people every now and then would stop. But one day, down in Falmouth, having my hair done, I heard this really young woman next to me describe her frustration. So I immediately, moved my chair over to her, and I said, I'd love to talk to you about this, because I'm really in this place too. I have a little bit of a theory, but I'd like to know from you. She said, oh, it happens all the time. If I see anyone throw any litter out of my car, we turn right around and I take them right back and I say, we need to pick that up. And their attitude is, well, there are other people. One, I don't want it in the car, so the consciousness is not there. Or two, if she brings some consciousness to it, they would say, well, the town will pick it up, or the people in the orange, work suits.
Somebody else will do it.
And then the last thing that. Right before I discovered Meg and her amazing group, we were over in Sagamore at the Dunkin' Donuts, and we were behind. My husband was driving, at the takeout window, and there was a minivan with a mom full of teenagers. And literally, as she's receiving the styrofoam with all the new drinks, the daughter in the front seat, as it turns out, did put her window down, put her arm out, and let go, and this whole cup of iced coffee or so forth smashed on the. So my husband, without saying a word, just got up and went up to the car, and I watched the mom kind of, curiously about a man approaching the car as she's trying to get the drinks, and he came to the car and I said, what did you do? And he said, I just simply picked it up, knocked on her window. When she put it down, I said, I think you dropped this. And her mom was quite upset and said, what are you doing? You weren't raised to do that. So I think this ability that you just raised about our culture it's a mobile society. The kids are completely, it's not a walking place. They're driving. They're living in their cars. I mean, the food, the amount of fast food and the amount of the busyness that people do, they have to get from one place to the next. So, I think more people than not say, I sort of hadn't intended to have my car be like my extra room, but there's Kleenex boxes and there's food wrappers. So I think that unintended consequence too can be you just get out of your car and things move around.
Right.
But I think it's a level of culture and consciousness and literally having so many other distractions. There's just not a. But she did end her little story by saying that while she does that, she said she remembered growing up in the 70s and her family would take Sunday drives. And she said her dad particularly talked all about what you just shared about his growing up and how something needed to be done. So she said she and her 2 brothers, this is really who they are. But her, her thinking on it was really, it's definitely more, it's more the younger generation that just really doesn't have the awareness that we all grew up with.
Right. Well, it's the younger generation, and then there are categories of people, as we well know. So let's talk a minute about what you're seeing on the sides of the road.
Right.
Okay. So one of the big bones of contention with anybody who picks up litter are nip bottles. And they're all over the place, and we know why they're all over the place, because the nip represents that alcoholic shot that you take before you go to work or as you're before you go home.
You don't really want anybody to know that you're doing it.
Exactly, and
so they can't stay
by
in your
law,
car.
yes, it has to go
destroy
out.
the evidence.
It has to go out of your car. So nip bottles are something you find all over the place, no matter where you are on Cape Cod. Cigarette butts are another big one. That's huge. But think about it. Cars don't have ashtrays anymore. Where are they going? Where would people put that cigarette butt? in their hand? I don't think
It's
so.
interesting. They really don't. They don't have the lighters anymore. And the ashtrays,
Exactly.
So we solved one problem by trying to reduce smoking, but then
That's right.
people that are still smokers,
Exactly.
Figure it out though. How about make your own ashtray?
That's actually one of the things we advocate is, they used to have those little beanbag
I was
ashtrays.
just having that thought. The little beanbag ashtray.
And I'll
put in
bet
your
you
cup
if
holder.
you go to one of the local low-price stores, without naming any of them, you'll still find beanbag ashtrays. And so again, put it in your car and then empty it when you get home. Put it in your own trash. Don't just throw it on the side of the road.
It really is an example that even though we assumed that we solved one problem, we're moving on to now the 80s, we'll tackle recycling. So we've gone from completely unregulated town dumps with no liners, contaminating groundwater, catching on fire, creating massive pollution problems, everything blowing all over the place, rivers full of trash, leaded gasoline causing lead in blood in children and causing developmental issues, all of that in the 60s and 70s. Super fun, Love Canal. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Google these, you'll find that Love Canal is a very infamous toxic waste site up in upstate New York. And we created a whole new series of regulations: Clean Water Act, Clean Air Act, National Pollution Discharge Elimination System, so that you can't just dump anything into rivers and streams. Up in paper country, the river would turn red one day and blue the next day, depending what they were dyeing, or fabric, the textile. And we hit all these milestones, and we said, okay, now we've got to this level, we'll start diverting and recycling, because that's now where we need to go, is to not waste resources. But then you look back and you say, we still have to keep maintaining those messages.
Right.
That's right.
And the assumption that they would continue to be maintained was lost somehow.
Right.
That you would think that if you're into recycling, that part of that messaging about not littering would have come along with that. Apparently not so.
No, no, it hasn't. And I think, we thought we educated people. They did a good job. There was evidence people were not littering to anywhere near to the extent that they had been. But then, guess what? They all grew older. Now you have this whole new group of kids that has never
And
been
parents, and their
educated.
parents.
Now they're gotten through high school. Now they're driving. Now they don't want mom to know that they have, they stopped and somebody got them a 6-pack of beer. So where do the beer cans go? Out. They don't want mom to know that they stopped at the fast food chain before going home for dinner, because mom will potentially get annoyed with them for eating before dinner time. Where does the evidence go? Look at your exit ramps.
Yeah.
Oh, the exit ramps.
Brutal.
I mean, really,
Everywhere.
when you analyze what's at the exit ramp, it's things you don't want someone, I'll call it at home, to know that that you consumed.
It'd be fun to have a camera right there and take
I know.
the automatic license plate shot with
Right. Yes, that would be good.
Yeah,
But
you touch on all you're saying here is, I agree with you. I suppose it's like the parent with picking up the dirty laundry on the floor in the room. If you keep doing it as a teenager, why am I going to stop?
Right.
You're an enabler.
exactly.
Right? So we need to pick it up, but without tackling, the upstream source
Exactly.
of the problem, turning that tap off. You're forever cleaning up the after effects of it. And
Well, I think in my experience, it got to a point where I had to really stop talking about it, because other than what I was doing, it was really escalating more. I mean, as Meg said earlier, the amount of nips I was finding, was surprising, and then to see a lot of just being that consciousness on a local area, because I lived there, and I, transferred to noticing it elsewhere, noticing it on the highways more and more.
you're right down the street from a package store.
But that's right. But aside from that, my husband one day went to a home show, came back and said, "I think I found an organization for you, and you're caring about litter." And I think that that's really a powerful piece. That, as Meg said, we don't want to continue picking up litter always, but at the same time, you want to join forces with others.
Right.
So when I met Meg and talked with her and wrote a check to support what they're doing, I learned that, really the mission is really to educate and to advocate, but also to have a coalition of members from ideally every town on the Cape, so that we then go back and work locally, which is how you and I met. Yep. But at the same time, that best practice, whatever we decide in the towns, is shared among everyone else. I think that's a really good way to do it, because while most towns are having their own anti-litter campaigns, we really need to elevate this to a level of, because there's just more fast food restaurants than there ever were when we were talking about the earlier conditions. There's more of a culture of just being more mobile. So we were just in Los Angeles last week at Thanksgiving visiting our kids, and that's pretty interesting in a whole city, huge city. But we also took a 2-hour drive up the coast to Ojai, and pristine town. And we stopped in a wine store to buy some wine for some friends, and I got talking to the owner and talked about nips. And she really didn't understand what I was talking about. So when I pointed to the nips behind the counter, I said, well, do you find them? And she said, oh, no. And I said, well, that's interesting. She said, well, people here respect the environment. And I said, well, I come from Cape Cod, where, we have a beautiful part of the country that's environmentally attracts millions of people every year, but we seem to have this issue. And she said, well, every now and then you might find one like in a park bush, but I can't imagine that people would just put them on the streets or you'd see them on the roads. So I think there's that too. There's the whole awareness, and again, it's that continual education. So some parts of the country are a little more, and we do have a lot of visitors who come here too, so right. It's probably a combination of all that Meg started talking about, between the consumable people products and construction products and visitors coming. So I think advocacy and education is really some good stuff to get our hands around.
What are you seeing in the litter?
So besides the nips and the cigarette butts, those are big ones. What we also see a lot of is construction, what I call construction litter. So it is things like the 5-gallon white pails, the paint pails or the mortar pails. Those,
really?
Oh my gosh, Route 6 is filled with them. Mm-hmm. You see wrappings from shingles, so paper wrappings sometimes, you can read on the side.
Back of the pickup of the contractor
Thank
from
you
a
very
job,
much.
and it's blowing down the highway.
Exactly.
They're supposed to be tarped, by the way.
Yes, they
That's
are.
the law.
In fact, Rep. Whalen recently introduced new legislation to increase the fine to $1,000 for untarped loads. Mm-hmm. There's little loopholes around this, mm-hmm. Because the question is, what is a load? Mm-hmm. Is a pickup truck, when there was a great cartoon in the Cape Cod Times, editorial cartoon, and it shows this ma and pa in their pickup truck, and they're heading to the dump. Well, all the trash is flying out of the back of the truck. And it was so perfect, because it really, while most of those pickup trucks don't get on Route 6, they're going the back way to the various town transfer stations. Just follow the road to the transfer mm-hmm. station, and you will just find it full of litter. And that's because people, I don't know, Phil, if they don't think it's going to fly out, if they're, I don't know what it is, but through our DPWs, frankly, we could be educating people more by handing out and I hate the thought of handing out another piece of paper, but by handing out something or having one of the boards, the electronic boards that says, make sure your load is covered, and maybe it even says, make sure your pickup load is covered. You're bigger, you have a landfill, okay? Most of us just have transfer stations, so we're not taking in the big trucks. Mm-hmm. But even if and because now I'm giving myself an idea, I think I'm going to get our DPW director in Brewster to post that, because the road that leads to the landfill, the DPW goes out and cleans it on a routine basis. Routine basis.
Well, and what's interesting, I like the approach you're talking about on the Cape together. I want to know who you're collaborating with.
Exactly.
We'll talk about that in a second here.
Yep.
But the idea of
mm-hmm.
Barnstable County as a unit, such a huge issue, and we're not even going to talk about, well, we could talk about for a few minutes, but the global issue here, because what's
Right.
happening here,
Right.
we have the infrastructure, we have
Yes.
modern systems,
Yes,
we
we
have
do.
laws, regulations, money, equipment, places to go for all of these things. A place for everything and everything in its place, as Ben Franklin would say.
Right.
We have those systems because we did not have them just 40 years ago, and we were killing our environment. Globally, they're adopting our lifestyles. It's a huge issue on a massive scale, which leads to the marine litter issue we can talk about in a minute. But I like the idea of let's bring it down to a succinct, get our arms around the Cape, which is a distinct unit that everybody knows about.
Yeah.
We can perhaps, it sounds, we could work with your organization, the coalition that you've built.
Right.
We have a public service announcement possibility through cable TV. We have the way to pull all these groups together to create a unified campaign
Exactly.
that then all the towns, selectmen, boards of health, DPWs could get on board with. All the handouts could be looking the same. They could hand them out at the drop-off centers. The trucks could have magnetic signs on them.
Exactly.
Billboards all over. And it's a unified campaign, and that's what I think made the Crying Indian Keep America Beautiful work. It was a unifying campaign. It was national.
Yeah, it was national.
Everybody
Yep.
got the same message, but we can start somewhere.
Right.
Because we've been talking about this for years.
Yep.
I've talked about it. Keep America Beautiful. Why don't they do this? Why aren't they doing it? Blah, blah, blah.
Exactly.
We
It's
can do
us.
something here.
That's right.
And who are you working with? Who are your collaborators?
So that's where so after we were just formed in 2016, right about the same time. Again, there must have been a lot of litter in 2016 or something, because all of a sudden everybody woke up to the
Coalesced,
litter.
right.
Yes, and so
It might be related to the ocean gyres with
it could be.
plastics.
There was a lot more awareness.
Trash is now cool in
Yeah.
the sense that
Yeah, it never
it's
was
on the,
when you and I started,
right
Phil.
now. There were a couple of paradigm shifts. There was the early '70s, which, oh my God, we've got thousands of online dumps and we're doing all this pollution. Let's create the regulations. That was the original Earth Day movements in the early '70s, and then it went along for a while. And then we had the trash barge in the late '80s, which was this infamous
Right.
trash, the Mobris
That's right.
7000 or whatever, which was a barge of baled trash from Long Island that they were bringing down to the mid-Atlantic somewhere, and somehow it got in the news and they were rejected, and it went on a several-month, 5,000-mile journey,
Oh yeah.
and it led to the modern recycling movement. Now,
right.
again, everybody's going along nice and quietly, and all of a sudden now we have this next leap
That's right.
where I think major media discussions of ocean plastics and National Geographic with the little seahorse grabbing the Q-tip, visceral, impactful visual images like that, and this idea that we have a gyre, which is the swirling whirlpool
We have 5 of them
waste,
globally. Yeah.
big as the state of Texas. It's not literally a platform or trash you can walk on.
Right.
It's now breaking down. And people are reading these articles, and now they're all of a sudden it's on the tips of everybody's tongues at every holiday meal. And then, of course, you and I being in that industry, I can't go anywhere. Once I get into that topic, it's I can't get a bite of food in because there's so many questions.
Right.
But I think we're in another one of those shifts there. Maybe that's what's going on.
And that could be, Phil. And so what happened, and related to that, two of the other collaborators, so we're a collaborator is what we are, with 2 other organizations, Care for the Cape and Islands and the Center for Coastal Studies. Naturally, the Center for Coastal Studies was coming from that very perspective of
Who are
what
they for the
happens
people that
on
don't
the
know?
what happens on the land ends up in the sea. So the Center for Coastal Studies is a nonprofit located in Provincetown, and they've been around, easily 20 years, if not 40 years. I mean, they've been around quite a while. And they study issues with the ocean, mainly they started more with fishing gear, so the derelict fishing gear. That's a little different than traditional land-based litter, but that's how they sort of got their
Same
start.
concept,
But
though.
litter's litter in my book. The Care for the Cape and Islands is a little bit different group in that originally they weren't really into litter and solid waste. They were really more into greening businesses or helping businesses to
Is this
become
Take Care
green.
Cape Cod?
Well, I'm getting to
Okay,
that.
all right.
So Take Care Cape Cod. So those are the that's the umbrella. They're the collaborators. The Take Care Cape Cod campaign is the marketing tool that we're now using to get that bigger message out, which is Take Care Cape Cod. And we've had 3 summits already in the past 2 years. And as a result, we have created, there's a website, takecarecapecod.org. And on that website, you can sign up to use their toolkit. Their toolkit has all kinds of posters. It has lots of good information about the issues with litter, the problems with litter. It was designed after Take Care Tahoe, which had some really good graphics, which they nicely allowed us to use.
They are nice graphics.
At no cost.
Amazing.
And all we had to do was convert them from kind of the mountains and snow to beach issues, you know. And so we've been able to convert them. We got rid of the bear, even though we had a bear on Cape Cod. We got rid of the bear scenes. And so now we have fish and turtles and things like that are more applicable to Cape Cod. Mm-hmm. And so what we're trying to do now is get that message out more broadly. And again, it goes back to the education. If we're not promoting Take Care Cape Cod, along with Cape Cod Anti-Litter Coalition, then we're not ever going to change people's habits. And so I liked your idea of magnets. That immediately struck me, and I said all of the trash trucks, maybe even the private haulers,
So we do this in
might
Bourne
be willing to do
with
something
the
like
state materials that have do not bag and how to educate, and with the recycling committee we had a real fun time with do not bag, a public service announcement.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a nice graphic the state provided through a contractor, and I had those signs made up for the drop-off center at the landfill and put them on the containers. And it's, people bag recyclables, which then make them pretty much trash when they go to the recycling facilities, or they put loose bags, the plastic bags that blow around, into the recyclables. We don't want those. They can be recycled, bring them back to the stores, by the way, but don't put recyclables in them or put those in the curbside containers. But we also put them on the magnetic, so we slapped them on the sides of the trash trucks.
Right.
And I think there's all sorts of ways to do these types of things, and I like the idea. You have a leg up that you have a uniform look. You have a marketing theme that now that is a platform from which it sounds like you have plans to expand to all these outreach, whether it's social media. Really, we grew up in a different era with print and some television, but everybody's on their phones, everybody's on their tablets. So one of the things we did with the latex take-back program, paint take-back program this summer with iSwim, was we worked with the newspaper advertising to do a media campaign. And the little banners, it was everywhere.
Right.
Paint take back,
Yes.
it was awesome. And the do not bag with the town, same sort of thing. That little banner with it started popping up on all your searches. And I think you'd have to look at doing a lot of that so that we're hitting the target audience, which is phone,
everybody on their phone.
That demographic that we're just talking about that hadn't grown up with it now is suddenly getting a 20-second or 15-second pre-commercial on their YouTube video that they just Googled, which I watch YouTube all the time. There's these 15-second little commercials, or depends on what you pay for.
Exactly.
But I'm sure there's some sort of commitment that they have to make to public service announcements. But you have local celebrities with Take Care Cape Cod campaign, Don't Litter, or you show a little video of someone driving off Route 6 on Mid Cape, and then there you see them throwing it out the window, and then you have someone standing there go, what? All sorts of things. Those are impactful.
Oh,
You don't even need to say anything.
No, I know. And we actually, the Cape Cod Anti-Litter Coalition, we did 3 commercials, to call them commercials, or PSAs, I guess. And one was exactly that. It was a pickup truck driving down the road. It had a cup in the back, and the cup flew out. Very few words. Another one was a guy on a bicycle going down the bike trail. Again, he had a candy wrapper in his pocket. The next you know, because he's pedaling away, the candy wrapper comes out of his pocket. Another one is a beach issue where the guy says, "Oh, I'll put it here. I'll take it when I leave." And then a little bit of sand gets on it. He gets up and leaves, and the paper is still there, or the bag. I think it was a bag. So we've already started doing a lot of that. But where I think personally, Bourne is in a key position. When you think of the number of people who cross the Bourne Bridge, hundreds of thousands, and they're local people who are going to work on the other side, but there's also all of the visitors that we have. Not all of them, of course, some come across the Sagamore, but the Bourne Bridge carries an awful lot of traffic. Yep. I think there's some really great opportunities to focus the message right at the beginning of the Cape.
Absolutely.
Right at the beginning of the Cape.
Mass DOT controls all the roads to the bridges.
We are talking with them.
And Army Corps of Engineers owns and controls the bridges.
And we work with them.
I would be shocked if they would not leap at a collaborative effort and get some sort of grant through them or some sort of cooperation on a program for, I'm talking next summer.
That's what
at the Rotaries.
We would love
all
to
of that,
see.
right?
Fantastic.
And then have some sort of, whether it's the signs they pop up, you could have go to takecarecapecod.org, whatever it is, that people then can check out.
I would like to actually take it one step further, since I live in the village of Pocasset, but the town of Bourne. Very proud of Bourne, and for the 15 years that we've lived here full time, I've really loved the spirit of people in Bourne to make things happen. So the two that stand out for me are the a small group that got together with Bourne on the 4th of July. So that's now turned into a really wonderful community event. And lends itself to the name Bourne. And the other one is the Bourne Rail Trail. My husband and I are on that continually, or the canal. What a wonderful group, the meetings, the organization that they're showing behind it, using best practices, the western part of the state. So I come from another not-for-profit on the Cape where we've evolved a model up here on the Upper Cape to get the word out, in a very grassroots way. And it's really through what we're calling a Corps of Ambassadors. So as I sort of think about my commitment to Cape Cod Anti-Litter Coalition and knowing that the intent is to really take it back and make it local, I can't think, and tying to what you just said, we are the gateway here. And so I would love to have your audience or people, I think when people get passionate about something's been bothering them, then they'll take an action. It's just where to go.
So your website is, tell me your website.
So our website is nocapelitter.org. Okay.
And on there it talks about how you can volunteer, how to donate if you'd like.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
I like your motto, which is America the Beautiful, a line from the song America the Beautiful.
Right.
And then you have a pledge. There's all sorts of pledges on
yes.
there. But the simple one is, I pledge not to litter anything, anytime, anywhere.
That was mine, yes.
Exclamation point.
Exactly.
I pledge to pick up litter when I see it.
Right.
I will just give a caveat on that for health and safety. If you see needles, things like that, which are dangerous,
right.
let the fire department, the health department know, mark the location,
yes.
let others handle that. We don't want children picking up what's this pointy thing, and that's very dangerous for a lot of reasons, obviously. But we're talking about cups and bags and litter things. If there's big tire piles, call the DPW.
Right.
We want to know where those things are. Legal dumping is why we need infrastructure.
Yes.
And then the last part is, and I pledge to encourage everyone to do the same.
Exactly.
Which you do those three things, it's a long way towards solving this.
Well, and Phil, if you think about it, so one of the things that I also encourage people to think about is in their own front yard. Now, I live on a residential street. I'm always shocked when I find litter on my street. There's only 17 houses. It's like, who did this? But when I think about all the streets, in a more densely populated area, and Bourne has its more densely populated
Buzzards
areas.
Bay is, the big city.
If,
right.
if everybody would just, I know they didn't put it there, but if everybody would just pick up what's in front of their house,
Yeah.
imagine how much cleaner Bourne would look.
Yes, for sure.
Or any of the
the
towns.
beaches, yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's the broken window syndrome I alluded
Yes.
to earlier, and this
Yeah.
is a urban development axiom where you have a derelict building and then someone throws a rock through the window and it doesn't get fixed,
Right.
and then someone says, well, no one's investing in that, and then that attracts litter, trash, vagrants using it for all sorts of purposes, and then the next house over says, well, that looks terrible. Why am I going to invest in everything here? Or they move out because of it, and the next person comes in, and then the next, and so pretty soon the whole area looks that way, and then no one, the inertia you have to overcome to move forward and change that is enormous, because now it's a bigger issue. It just kind of, it's like a cancer spreads, if you will.
Exactly.
But I also think it's about access. I had
Yeah.
an experience recently at the airport in waiting for a flight to leave, and this young man was down a couple people from me at a computer table, so we were working, and I noticed that he was eating, so he had a couple paper bags and a coffee cup. And all of a sudden I looked down next, he was gone and all his trash was left. So my first reaction was, I hope he's just moved away and coming back.
Right.
And when that wasn't apparent, I thought, well, I have to do something about this. So I, walked over and picked up his bags, 2 bags, and then it took me at least 5 to 7 minutes to find a trash receptacle. And then I realized that if I was giving him the benefit of the doubt, he may have in fact done that. He may have, his plane might have been called, he might have looked around. They were there, but they were not apparent and they weren't visible. And I think that's what happens at the beaches. I know Falmouth is working with their selectmen.
A debate. This is a source of controversy. So there's the put more containers
Yes.
theory versus take them all away, carry in, carry out. If you go to the
Exactly.
national park system, they don't have containers in some parks because they feel that you should not encourage, because the other side of the coin is, and we've seen this at the beaches, we have more containers, recycling here, trash here. Well, they bring everything there and they stuff everything into each container.
Yes.
You can't recycle.
Yeah.
And now you end up
There is
on
that
weekends
issue,
or
yeah.
after hours, people coming and they know that they can go down there and I'll bring it over to that because
Yes,
because
that's
that's
right.
maintained by the town, so it can be a magnet. And there's a mattress now, and there's some furniture and paints.
It's
and
a tough one.
Yeah, it's complicated.
It's
yeah.
some towns, I believe, Dennis. How's that working out?
There was, again, a bit of controversy. They only did it at one beach, and apparently the people who go to that beach were not happy. But I don't think the town has backed down on it. I mean, I'm a firm believer in carry in, carry out, and the bike trail up where we are, it is carry in, carry out. So when I do my daily route, which includes part of the bike trail and a parking lot, it's actually pretty clean. I think it takes time, and municipal officials are not willing to allow the beach to be dirty, the beach in particular, or recreational areas, to be dirty for any length of time, because they believe, that rightfully so, that would be a turnoff to visitors and homeowners.
It's a very hard.
It's very hard fill.
Part of what the education could be is plan your trip.
Well,
So you have
sure.
a little checklist that, I'm buying all these consumables.
Yep.
What am I going to do with them? What's my plan for going to the bathroom? Someone breaks their foot, or steps on a nail on the Cape. Where am I going to go to the hospital? Do I have my charger for my phone? And when I'm on the Cape, where am I going to put all my stuff? That I'm buying in the car. How about the kids come up with a plan that they're going to, put the recyclables in this bag and that bag. It could be a fun little planning thing. It's not going to work out perfectly, but the idea is now they're thinking about their footprint
again.
when they're
the
traveling.
Education is that exactly, and at the beach it does always amaze me, because I'm just a day tripper. In fact, only an hour on the beach because of the sun, so I don't bring a cooler. I don't need water. I'm fine. But everybody else has got the cooler. They've got it. Brought all kinds of things to the beach. What I never understand is just put it back in the cooler. You carried that heavy cooler, you lugged it down to the beach. Why? And now it's going to be weigh a third as much when you take it back. But no, you go up in the parking lot, and because in Brewster we have trash cans and recycling bins.
So these are the part. These you could have so many
just
little
use
vignettes.
Well, I think it's because on the
where
way
now you show a family going to the beach, they're packing, and the little kid says, "Mommy, what are we going to do with this?" Or they get the baby, and they've got diapers, because
Right,
diapers
'cause
is another big
that's-
one.
yeah, I'm
is
not
that you
putting
have
that
a
in the
diaper
cooler.
bag, and you plan because digging down 2 inches and covering it up like a dog would cover up its a cat and a kitty in the litter box. The beach is not where you want to put
No.
the diapers. Who wants to be swimming at a beach and see a dirty diaper? But it's amazing that people don't think ahead. And so you could have all sorts of these 30-second, they're endless.
Yes.
But I think those start to hit home because now people are saying, that's our family.
Well,
they see themselves.
Well,
Yes.
on the way in, it has a use. As soon as the wrapper's taken off, then it becomes trash. And then
It's
again,
it's
so
mentality.
the mentality hasn't transferred
I hate to pick on smokers,
trash.
but that was
Yeah.
almost a divine right to smoke and drop it on the ground and stamp it out.
Yes.
That was
Right.
in every movie in the 60s and 50s, in the 40s, and then
Yeah.
the other one, you take the shrink wrap off that, and you do this, and you throw the wrapper on the ground,
Yeah.
and it was kind of a cultural norm.
Right.
Well, there is a cultural change right now. If you look at some of the apps going on, talking about best practices, there's an app called Literati, and it's
Right.
an Instagram app, and it's people aimed at young populations taking pictures of trash, and then they post them, and it's actually a game.
So are
that
you
actually goes place.
linked into that at all? Connected to that?
We
We're
just started
connected.
discovering
We
it.
have them they're on our website.
So
Literati.
that kind of,
Yeah.
there's
They've
so many.
actually upgraded their.
I like the approach of all this, and this is the reason I wanted you on the show, is that I'm hoping in 2020 we can continue this conversation. I'm in on helping with these educational things, and I really believe if we pull this coalition together
Yeah.
really quickly, Cape Cod Media,
Right.
which represents, it used to be 3 TV down, I think it was down in Yarmouth, but it's
Yes.
the other big
It's-
studio down in
yeah.
Yarmouth,
Channel 99.
and Bourne TV, which is a superb studio that we're in, Falmouth
Absolutely.
TV. We have the resources, beautiful equipment, state-of-the-art to make all of these in-house, cost nothing
Right.
but time and creativity. We
Exactly.
could get something up very quickly, and,
Yes.
I would imagine we could get 5-second appearances by all sorts of celebrities on Cape Cod, whether it's selectmen, other elected officials, Chamber of Commerce representatives,
Or even some of the well-known personalities.
personalities,
Who visit the Cape or
Woods
own
Hole
homes.
Exciting.
scientists
You know.
to say, we support Take the Pledge, blah,
Right.
blah, blah, and they're all over.
That's very exciting.
And
Very
we could
exciting.
I could get a camera, we could do it, and then, so I'm interested in helping with that,
Great.
and I think that all these things we're talking about, as you know, we've done work in the solid waste business, we keep saying, but you start here, and then that gets going, and then the next,
That's
the
right.
next, the next. So you've got a website, you've
Right.
got to look, you've
Yes.
done a lot of the hard
the
part, the
administrative
inertia,
end, as I call
overcoming
it.
like
Yeah.
people sitting in a kitchen table thinking, what are we going to do, this gigantic problem?
That's right. Well, there's momentum. Now we need to move it out
Yeah,
to,
and I
to
think-
broadcast. Yeah.
Right, and I think that's what we're talking about.
Right.
We could pull this together over the next few months and make this happen. So I'm hoping that, I'm committing to helping you guys do that. I really believe
Great.
that we could do that because it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, this is. I think we're now in the fun part of it.
I mean, we did.
It
We had
was
fun with this.
administrative before. and-
Folks know if you look
you
at
know.
on the Town of Bourne website under the recycling quick link, you'll see the video that the recycling committee did, and I happen to be in there in the video that we did in the Do Not Bag. But that was shot and done. We did the whole thing in about 2 hours. The fantastic Elaine here at the studio did a lot of work in post editing that made it even better.
It was
which
great.
we have such a phenomenal
Yes, it was
staff here.
great. Yep.
Thank you to Elaine for that. But that's an example that within a day, that was up.
Yeah.
And it got the message out, had a little humor, and then
Yes.
that will attract, here's the next level of that, we get a whole season of that.
Mm-hmm.
That gets momentum. The governor sees it. The Secretary of
That's
Environmental
right.
Affairs sees it. Army Corps of Engineers with the roads along, 20
That's
miles
right.
of roads.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yes.
SAC sees it. And now you apply for a federal grant
Mm-hmm.
or state grant. There's definitely money out there. Keep America Beautiful grant.
Mm-hmm.
And I will bring. There are folks that, that want to talk about larger issues, and there are larger issues, but this is a simple one that it begins the conversation about what to do about something, because I want to talk about this right now. There is a little bit of anxiety on the part of people when they see all this, that now we need to do something, and they start to lurch over very extreme, in that now our lifestyles are killing everybody. We need to ban everything. We need to shut it all down. But they don't quite think through the implications. A lot of the packaging that we have, plastics included, has saved untold enormous amounts of fuel for transporting things that we want to buy, increased safety, increased shelf life, made food last longer that would otherwise have rotted on shelves, that would have been replaced and disposed of. So there's a lot of modern conveniences that we all take for granted, a lot of overpackaging, but there's a lot of basic things that make our lifestyles work. So you can drive to the Cape from New Jersey, hop off the exit, buy all this prepackaged stuff, and it's safe, you know it's going to work, but you have some stuff to deal with. So there's a lot of initiatives, and ban this, ban that. I'm wondering if you could comment on some of that.
Well, and yes, right now that is a big push for single-use plastic bottles in particular, and their use by municipal governments. But I'm like you, Phil, and maybe because I was in the solid waste world for too long, for two things. Number one, if you're going to eliminate something, what's going to crop up in its place? That's always my question.
Of course.
So now, if we're getting rid of the plastic bottle, what are people going to start substituting? Well, in Brewster, we're doing a whole campaign about drink Brewster tap, okay?
And that's what I want you to talk about. So drink your tap water. Why do we all of a sudden have bottled water? There's 50 billion bottles every year in the United States. 50 billion.
I know, and I agree wholeheartedly with that aspect of it. There's a certain part of the population that will continue to drink bottled water because their water is not as good as Brewster's or Bourne's or somebody else here on Cape Cod. And so I like to really try and think ahead to what is the unintended consequence of getting rid of this particular product. My response to the whole bottle thing has been, well, if people would just recycle those bottles as they are supposed to, they wouldn't be litter. They wouldn't be thrown in the trash where they might end up in your landfill because people didn't recycle them. So let's go back, let's step back a second. Instead of just banning, let's look at what the root really is here.
Of course.
And again, one of the other things that I did try to bring about, or the point I tried to make was, here on Cape Cod, we actually do a pretty good job of recycling. When you talk about the Pacific Gyre and all these other giant messes, that is not coming from countries that have an infrastructure.
Well,
the problem is, excuse me?
I'm glad you're bringing this up.
Yeah,
talk about this.
Because right now, especially Southeast Asia, which I have visited, it's appalling.
The overwhelming
it's
majority,
appalling.
in the 90% range of ocean litter, are from developing nations.
Yes.
That have a whole host of issues.
Right.
Be it extreme poverty and
Right.
stratification of income disparity, no environmental regulations to speak of, corruption at the government level, no infrastructure on the local or state level. And so people are used to disposing of things the way that their ancestors have done it for hundreds of years, which is dump in the rivers, dump in the woods, on the ground. But it was all organic for hundreds of years. The difference now is Asia is the fastest growing population in parts of Africa as well, where now they're adopting our lifestyles, which are prepackaged, non-biodegradable items, and they're using the same disposal methods without the systems in place.
Right.
So the technology's there. It's a massive Gordian knot of issues that varies by country, but then the rain comes, it goes to the rivers, everything goes to the ocean, and so somewhere on the order of 8 million tons a year of raw trash. It would be as if the town of Bourne Packers collected at the curb, went down to the canal, backed up into the canal, and dumped it in the canal and have it wash out into Phineas Harbor or Cape Cod Bay, which is exactly what's happening in Manila
Right.
in
Right.
Addis Ababa, or these poor
Yeah.
places that need help. Mumbai,
Right.
landfills are collapsing because they don't have proper oversight.
Right.
There's a huge worldwide, and I'll tell you, the industry in this country and internationally, the organizations are working to close these massive unregulated facilities where people are actually living, but working on providing the help and training to do the infrastructures, because that will stop the problem. The symptoms in the ocean are symptoms of systems where people don't have a place to go. We don't have that problem here. We
Right.
have systems.
We have systems.
It's
People
now
just,
a
yes.
cultural
That's right.
reset in the mind.
That's
Right,
correct?
exactly
getting
right.
people to use the systems, because the fact of the matter is, litter isn't something. It's not this new category. Litter is simply waste or recyclables that somebody didn't properly manage. That's all it is.
Well, and I tell people that I have a solution. Just ban all soda. If you want to go up to the next level, there shall be no sales of soda, juice, water, period. Problem solved.
Right.
Well, that's not reasonable, because it's a hot day, people need to have something. Well, too bad, drink out of the fountain. No one's going to want that. So now you go to the next question.
Right.
So in what kinds of containers do you put it? I grew up with glass. I tell people all the time, we dug up part of the online landfill at the Bourne dump, the Bourne dump, and I've got a 10-ounce Coke glass bottle that
Yeah.
weighs about a pound.
Yeah.
And you think of the energy to deliver that. It was
Sure.
made here in
Sure.
Sagamore,
Yeah.
Wow.
but then it was consumed and thrown in the dump at the time, the online dump. And then people walk on the beach in the 70s and 80s and, oh, they got beach glass. Isn't that romantic? And let's make little sculptures
That's
out of
right.
it. That's trash. That's
Right.
that's
litter.
the old
Yeah.
plastic bottle
That's
that was
right.
glass.
Right.
There's bag bans. We only have a couple of minutes left, but the bag bans have caught on because they are such a flyaway item.
Right.
Very simple. Bring your own bag.
Exactly.
That's right.
We're not going to give up convenience of packaged goods. The question is what form. The straw debate, very simple. Opt-in laws where if you want a straw, you have to ask.
Sure.
It shouldn't be
That's
an
easy.
automatic
That's
reaction.
automatic,
Yeah.
right.
Can I have another glass
Yeah.
of water? Sure, here's another straw. Here's
paper,
another straw.
yeah.
Straws are needed. Great if you want to do them biodegradable, but the straw in the turtle that's out in the middle of the Pacific is not because of our systems here. Some litter is for sure a
Right.
problem here. These are all habits. We're getting people to think about how they move through life on a daily basis.
Exactly.
We're in a packaged consumer world.
right.
It's just the way we are. We don't grow our own food. Very few people do. We travel all over the place. We want convenience. We want accessibility. So I want to give the website out again. It's nocapelitter.org.
Yep.
Thank you to our guests, Meg Morris, Teri Cavanaugh, our Bourne rep. And I think the model I'll say is I like the ambassador approach. We did that with the recycling committee. We had village
Fabulous.
volunteers, and
Yeah.
we had
Let's do
a
it.
leader, and we had a cadre of 80-something volunteers in the early days. We had no money,
Wow.
but we would call up the troops and say, Pecasset, go! And they would hand out flyers. I mean, I see a similar model
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
How about
Good.
Born to be litter-free?
That's great.
Ooh.
Born to Recycle is
Yeah.
We have lots more to talk about. This is just the beginning. Go check out the website. If you haven't seen that Crying Indian Native American ad from the 70s, please look on YouTube. It's fascinating. You'll see what we're talking about. It impacted a whole generation. My name is Phil Goddard. Welcome to the 2020 coming up. When you watch this, let's hope we have a litter-free 2020. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Phil.
Phil.
Take care, everybody.